What up, Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports. It's JJ.
And Mike, and this video is brought to you by Naples Rib Company, the perfect place to cater your team's next event.
We have been talking about Long Beach Poly football alum JuJu Smith-Schuster a lot this season. We're doing it again this week, but for the first time, it's not for hashtag good JuJu, it's for hashtag bad JuJu.
Well, that depends, I guess, on your perspective. The big question of the week among social media-ites in our world has been, is it fair that JuJu Smith-Schuster has been suspended for one game for, quote, violations of safety-related playing rules? Smith-Schuster laid a blindside block on Bengals linebacker Vontaze Burfict, and then flexed over him as Burfict was laying there prone. He was flagged for unnecessary roughness and taunting in the game, and then later issued by Jon Runyan a one-game suspension. He appealed it. It was upheld.
Runyan's quote from the suspension was, "You are suspended for the dangerous and unsportsmanlike acts you committed during the fourth quarter, specifically on a passing play to a running back. You lined up a defender and delivered a violent and unnecessary blindside shot to his head and neck area." Now, I need to stop there and say, first of all, that's not true. Look at where JuJu's eyes are at contact. In the armpit. If you are trying to go after somebody, your eyes are at their eyes during contact, and that was not the case here. Second of all, there is no such thing as an unnecessary block in the game of football. My high school football coach taught me that. You block everyone all the time until the whistle blows.
So before we talk about sort of our 3 points as to determining whether or not this is fair, we just wanted to put a disclaimer up front that we have known this guy since he was in 9th grade. We love him. He's babysat my kids while I was interviewing other people at Poly. One of the most high character high school star level kids that you could ever imagine being around. His whole family is that way, and we've shared personal moments with him. We had a camera at his draft party when he was selected by the Steelers and got to celebrate that with them. So this is personal because this is an issue that comes up over and over again in the NFL. It's happened to come up with a guy that we know very well and know his character. Point number one for me is perception versus reality. When you talk about, quote, safety related playing rules, which is something the NFL is very concerned about, what we know is the following. What leads to the worst cases of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is the degenerative brain disease that affects basically all football players from what autopsies have showed us, is that it's repeated small trauma that is what causes actual lifelong problems. That's why Junior Seau as a linebacker or running backs or linemen on both sides of the ball tend to have these issues more than quarterbacks and receivers, because it's the practice hits of helmet against helmet every single play in practice and games that causes the real issues. Now, has the NFL made one move other than shortening practices to actually address the way that those issues affect players? They have not.
This is their only idea.
They have not removed helmets. They have not removed pads. They have not removed the things that are actually causing these issues. So that bothers me a lot. This is a perception move, not a reality move. What they're doing is, it doesn't look good for us when a player is lying on the ground and someone's standing over him yelling. And if you look at the suspensions to Rob Gronkowski and to George Iloka, the Bengals safety who went helmet to helmet on Antonio Brown in the same game, one of those was suspended, and it was the helmet-to-helmet hit. The ones that were not suspended was JuJu's because of the taunt, which does not pose a safety risk. That is not a safety-related playing rule. And Rob Gronkowski's, which was a clear cheap shot after the play was over.
Then George Iloka suspension gets overturned. So now the NFL is screaming in your face, we don't care if it's about safety, it's more about how it looks.
Absolutely. Point number two to me is there's sort of an institutional racism in the way these issues get talked about that really bothers me. What we just mentioned, it's about the perception to the NFL and the NCAA. They understand that they're making money on these people risking their lives, and they don't want that to be super obvious. So they want people to pretend that that's not the case, and the best way they do that is to not say, wow, we've been giving these guys helmets for 100 years and that's a bad idea, we're going to take the helmets out of the game. Instead, what they do is they impose stricter and stricter fines, targeting rules on players who are in the worst position to make a change when you're rocketing at someone at 15 miles an hour and you've already left your feet. The best thing to do is to make it safer. If we found out, for example, that 75% of baseball pitchers got hit in the head with a comebacker and it had permanent brain damage, Major League Baseball would put different equipment on that guy. Well, they wouldn't tell hitters, stop hitting the ball at the pitcher.
Major League Baseball has changed equipment. Other sports have changed equipment. NFL not doing that, and this is just another example of Roger Goodell not being good at his job. He's just not good at it, because as the commissioner, you're supposed to make sure that these moments aren't comparisons.
Right.
It's unfair to compare the Gronkowski thing to the JuJu thing, because the Gronkowski thing is a WWE move that has nothing to do with the game of football. JuJu was playing football, and something happened that now, that wasn't very recently a problem, is now a problem. They're trying to make an example of this. Roger Goodell's just bad at his job. Don't be mad at JuJu. Don't be mad at Gronk. Be mad at Goodell.
But I think more than anything, the NFL needs to take the onus on itself to make the change, as opposed to asking the players to make the change. We've seen that same kind of what I would call institutional bias and possibly even racism manifested in the sports media. Andy Benoit from Sports Illustrated called JuJu a thug for that play. I can't imagine him saying the same thing about Rob Gronkowski, and I personally, as a human being, can't imagine saying that about another human being that I've never met.
It would also be treated a lot differently if Burfict was an offensive player and JuJu was a defensive player. Let's say that, because it's important. The way that it looked, again, like we just said, if Burfict's not injured and he gets up and there's a Monday Night Football fracas, we're talking about that as opposed to a suspension for JuJu. Also, the suspension really about the showing him up, the celebration, the standing over him. If you're going to make a comment on that, you have to have played football or laid a hit like that or had that much adrenaline running through your body at a moment like that to make a judgment on what JuJu did. Because you can only know what you would do when you're there if you've been there. And you've never been there, then you have no way to say, oh, I would never do that. How do you even know?
I think above and beyond that, and I certainly never played football at anywhere near the levels that this kid has. He acknowledged that he made a mistake on the taunting. I don't think either of us thought there was any problem with that flag. He taunted him, so they flagged him for taunting.
He should have got fined for taunting. Right. Absolutely. A bunch of people got fined for taunting this year.
But the problem that I also see is sports fans going up and down our Twitter mentions saying whether or not he's intentionally trying to hurt this guy, who you have to understand. Just as it's essentially physically impossible anytime a baseball player gets a hit because of the reaction times required to do it, you just can't ask people, in my opinion, to do more than JuJu did in making that block. He turned his body to get his shoulder in front of him. The top of his helmet contacted the bottom of Burfict's on the follow-through. But I just challenge you, take video, go out on the front yard and run into your best friend as fast as you can, and then even try and remember what parts of your bodies contacted each other. It's just a very difficult thing to do, and we've heard that from guys like Jarrell Casey and Mercedes Lewis, who are longtime NFL pros, who say they're asking us to make all these decisions in real time, in a quarter second. And it's really, really difficult to impossible to do that. Okay, put those three things together, the perception versus the reality of safety, institutional bias in these leagues protecting themselves, and the experience factor. I really don't think that this is fair, and I don't see anyone could see Ialoka's suspension getting overturned and JuJu's being upheld and say this is anything other than a PR move. PR moves always bother me, but they really piss me off when they happen to people that we know. And you're talking about someone's livelihood in game check, and on a rookie deal, that's actually a big deal.
NFL is in trouble enough for a lot of different reasons, and we've only mentioned a few of them right now. Don't get in your own way, NFL. Do less. Let us know what you think the NFL should be doing about situations like this.
As always, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors, including Papalucci's, a great place to eat down on 2nd Street. There's plenty more NFL football to go, and we got a lot of Long Beach guys in the NFL, so I'm sure we'll be talking about more of these issues to come right here at GazetteSports.com and the Press Telegram.